What if you could steal the local SEO strategy of a business that shows up in the map pack in almost every major city? If your service-based business isn't making $1 million per year, you might want to stick around for this one, because in this video, we're going to break down $1 million local SEO strategy. And it's not just $1 million. This company makes over $300 million per year. And one of their biggest lead generation tactics is local SEO. Over the past week, I've been trying to find a big brand that we can dive deep on, and I found the one. Ready for the big reveal? Mr. Rooter. That's right. It's just a boring old brand that you've seen on vans in your town before. But think about it. If you search plumber near me and they're located in your area, they will be showing up highly. So let's try to steal their moves in this video. And by the way, if you're new here, my name's Sam. I have a local SEO agency that's generated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of leads for local businesses just like yours. So let's get into it. So let's see exactly how they're showing up all over the place for all those locations. And we might even see some things that they could be doing better. And let's get started with the first thing, which of course has to do with that map pack, the Google business profile. So I dropped the pin in my hometown of Bend, and they're showing up actually just outside of the map pack, and they're also on the first page when you search plumbers near me, not that far down at all. And I can tell you from all the research I've done that this happens consistently in big markets over and over and over again. So what are they doing to their GBP? We're using my favorite free GBP audit tool, Plepper. Link to a full video on this if you want to check it out. And so we can't see everything that's going on with the profile here. Like, we can't see if they filled out their services and things like that. But what we can see is that they've put in secondary categories, and that's a big thing that a lot of people miss. Now, I know we're going to talk a lot about plumbers here today, but if you do kitchen remodels, if you do roofs, you gotta have these secondary categories filled out, okay? Another thing that's interesting is a lot of times their links are gonna have UTM tags, which is for tracking purposes. If you want me to do a video on that, leave a comment below, because I'd love to cover that topic at some point. Now, my biggest takeaway that I have here is that they are using those secondary categories, so that's super important. You'll notice they're also taking advantage of putting their services as products. So we have all those there. They're categorized nicely. And when I click on these, they even have a little bit of words in here, and nothing super complicated. They filled out a couple questions, including their service area in here. They have a ton of reviews. It looks like they're doing about 2 GBP posts per week. And you can see they're bouncing around to different services, which is the exact strategy we use with our agency. So yeah, it seems like they're doing the big things. They have the main category correct. They're plumbers. They have secondary categories in there as well, so they can show up for their other secondary services as well. They filled out the product section, which makes me believe they filled out the services section, which is on the back end. They've got a steady stream of consistent, high quality reviews from happy customers, and they're posting regularly to their Google business profile, rotating the services that they offer. Now, they're doing it twice a week. They're a franchise, so they're probably able to get those from their corporate overlords. However, if you can only post once per week, that's fine. Don't worry too much about doing more than that. All right, so that's breaking down the Google business profile. But what a lot of local business owners don't know is that your website can boost up your ranking in the map pack. And so you want to have a well-structured website. So we got to dig into what their website looks like. Now, if you go to mrrooter.com, it actually will give you different pages depending on the location. And essentially, you can think of there's like a fan of different locations breaking out here. In fact, you can see they have pages for each state. And then if you're in California, you can see the service areas that they have here, and also the related cities, which they actually have pages built out for. But I'm going to zoom in on Central Oregon here, because that's where I'm located. So you can see they're doing a lot of things right. It's good to have your logo up in the top left corner. Not too big, just enough for brand recognition. You want to have a clear navigation as you go across the middle, and you want clear call to action in the top right. We have this book online button, which is pulsating, and the phone number, very easy to see. Now, one change I would make is I'd take these social profiles and I move them down to the bottom, because here's the thing. If you get on to Facebook or YouTube or something like that, it's super easy for your potential client to get distracted, forget what they were doing. They might still come back to your page eventually, but if they're not 100% sold already, you just let them go down a social media rabbit hole that you didn't need them to go down. But anyway, as we go back down, they have an image of this guy. He works for Mr. Rooter. It's a common brand that we mostly recognize. Now, you probably don't have a common brand that people can mostly recognize, so you might not want to copy this strategy. Over here, they have Mr. Rooter Plumbing of Central Oregon, which is their H1. Actually, if you look here, I'm using detailed SEO extension. I can see that they're H1 is Mr. Rooter, Plumbing of Central Oregon. That's what it is right there. They have some text here. This link actually links back to the Google business profile, which I thought was interesting. They have social proof right here, lots of reviews, a good rating. And then they have a lead generation form here. Let us call you. I feel like there's a better call to action there than let us call you. But you know, they make it very easy for you to book online. With this next section, they're sending trust signals by talking about how they are licensed and all that good stuff. They have links out to their other services, which are, yes, location-based. The link down here, which you can't see, is Central Oregon /residential services /drain cleaning. The stereotypical why choose us section, a service area section, which might not always be the best choice nowadays, but you know, it's a classic. And then further links out to more of their services. Some of these link out to location pages. Some of these link out to more generic pages that it looks like they have at a higher level on the website. This nice little secondary call to action that my head's kind of in the way of here. Some customer reviews, that secondary action, call to action again. Then we have frequently asked questions with the first tab already being open, which is kind of a nice touch. A link to financing, which can always be good for home services. That lead generation form again. And then they're also mentioning careers, which is not a bad thing. You could probably link that down in the footer if you're a smaller company. And then more trust signals. They're saying, hey, look, we're a big company. We even got an app. You know, they're part of the neighborly group of businesses. And then we get down to the footer, which can sometimes be called the junk drawer. There's those social profiles. Again, I think that's where I'd link them right there. A lot of people get to the end of the page. And then, of course, your legal stuff down here. Typical service page, it actually looks pretty solid. Now, there are some things that I would personally change. And that's mostly because I like to write a little bit more to the humans. And I believe in the storytelling element. I'm a big fan of StoryBrand. And actually, if you check out this video right here, I give away my perfect on-page SEO structure that actually talks about StoryBrand. So you definitely want to check that one out. And it includes a link to a custom GPT that can help you copy that strategy. But for a trusted brand like this is pretty perfect. I mean, I think that this could be targeting Bend a little bit better because if you actually look at the search traffic, there's a lot more searches for Bend than just Central Oregon, which is pretty common. But overall, this is a solid page. And just so you know, pretty much every service page looks something like this. So we don't necessarily need to look at a ton of other pages, but let's talk about the bones. I have a small local SEO community called Local SEO Academy. And a question that I get a lot in there is, how should I structure my client's website? Now, this is a pretty good way to do it. Now, they have a page for Redmond, which is the second biggest city in Central Oregon. And when we click on that, we can see that they're actually targeting plumbers. This page is a little bit different, but it's mostly the same. They also have one for drain cleaning. So they've identified that those are the two services that they really want to target in every city. But if we go back, we can see that they have a lot of service pages targeting Bend, which is definitely the biggest city. You know, we're talking 40,000 people in Redmond. We're talking over 100,000 people in Bend. And so we have leak detection, clogged drains, video camera inspection, tankless water heater, blah, 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 blah. And your interstitial pages like book online, meet the team, all that good stuff, including the obligatory picture of the dog, which I believe is a very nice touch. Good work. But I want you to really notice this. Notice that they do have a page for each one of their services in their main city. Bend is the biggest city in Central Oregon, so they're targeting all the services in Bend. But they're not targeting all the services in every other little city, just the top ones. And I want to show you something else that I noticed. If you look at a sitemap for a different location, like Van Nuys, you can see that they've targeted plumbing in Burbank and plumbing in Reseda, but all the services are just in Van Nuys. They're not targeting all the services in Burbank. They're not targeting all the services in Reseda. They have a strategy where they're going after the biggest keywords possible where there's the most search traffic. And people, the numbers don't lie. These locations average $1.2 million per year. Their local SEO budget is probably somewhere between $5,000 to $25,000 per year. $25,000 is a heck of a lot more than people pay my agency per year. So this is working. But you see, the thing I haven't talked about so far is that Mr. Rooter has something that you don't have, and it's a trick up their sleeve. And that trick is backlinks. That's right, that dirty B word in local SEO that people don't like talking about because it's kind of icky. I'm not really sure how to do it. So let's just not talk about it, right? I can get my site to rank without backlinks. You're wrong. You need authority, and Mr. Rooter has a ton of it. Let's take a look at how much. This is one of the benefits of joining corporate overlords as a franchise is you start off with a website that has an authority score of 46. When you start your website tomorrow, it's going to have an authority score of 0. Not cool. And while it will take you a long time to get to an authority score of 46 for your service-based business, what I've noticed by looking at the SERPs, which stands for Search Engine Result Pages, is that Google tends to favor franchises and independent local businesses. And so sometimes there will be an independent local business number one, then a franchise, then something like Yelp, then an independent business, then a franchise, then something like Home Advisor, then an independent business, franchise, independent business, and then we're on to the second page. Does that make sense? So even though franchises will always have more authority than you, that doesn't mean you don't have a chance. But if you just give up and don't build any authority, then you're gonna have no chance of ranking. But hey, check this out. We can kind of steal their strategy. So right now I'm using SEMrush's backlink analytics section. Now you do have to be on the paid version if you want to use this yourself. We'll put a link to a 7-day free trial if you want to try this out. SEMrush is expensive, but if you just want to try it out for a week, we have a special free trial that you can check out. Thanks SEMrush for doing that. And then what I've done here is I've gone over to the index pages, if you can see that there. So I can see all the pages and I sorted it by the amount of referring domains. Now, if I go back to the first page, you can actually see that this, the home page definitely has the most referring domains and backlinks, and referring domains is usually more important than backlinks. The first page actually that has the most domains pointing to it is actually the Atlanta page. I would love to dive deep on this Atlanta page down the road and see if there's some backlinks we can steal for our clients later on. So I'm just reminding my team members, we are going back to this page later and we are taking what we can from here. But let's stick with our friends in Bend and let's see what kind of backlinks they have. So now I'm looking at the referring domains specifically for that Central Oregon page, and I'm sorting it by authority score. Now, in case you don't know what authority score is, basically Google has to determine the trust of a website, and behind the scenes it's called PageRank. It used to be publicly visible a long time ago until SEOs ruined that, and so now it's a private number. And so tools like SEMrush will have an analog like authority score, or you might have seen Ahrefs' DR domain rating. There's a bunch of different tools out there. Essentially that's what they're trying to do, is emulate PageRank. Okay, so this isn't really what Google thinks, but it's the best we have, so we go with something like this. And so now if you look, these are the exact links. And so if you were a plumber in Central Oregon, you want to make sure you have all of these links. And in fact, these are just the links that they have. You could go back out and go to that list and say, hey, are there any other citations that the Central Oregon Mr. Rooter doesn't have that a different location has? Because that's still going to be industry relevant. And I want you to think about that, because when it comes to backlinks, you want to be two things: locally relevant and industry relevant. Right now, by looking at this list, even if you're not a plumber, you can see stuff that is industry relevant. Home Advisor, even if you're a contractor, industry relevant. Best pros in town, even if you're a roofer, still industry relevant. One thing that's interesting here is that they were a sponsor for Munchin Music, which is like a summertime music festival. The authority score for that is a 26, and it seems to be a durable link. I'm not a big fan of local sponsorships just for backlinks, but I mean, 26 is a pretty good authority score, and that's very locally relevant. So again, we're just scraping the surface by looking at this one location. We could keep going and keep looking at these. The key with backlinks, so important, is that when you're building these, you want to do it naturally. Typically, we stick to around 5 to 10 per week, and we augment that with a tool called Bright Local. If you want, you can check out this video where I talk about different citation tools and why I think Bright Local is actually the best, and that's why we use it in our agency. But when you find these competitor backlinks, you definitely want to piece them out. But by doing this, you can get a nice list of like 20, 30, maybe even 100 high quality backlinks that you can point back to your website, and they usually only take a couple minutes to fill out. So there you have it, a $1.2 million local SEO strategy broken down in less than 30 minutes. But here's one caveat. I've noticed that there are actually different case studies for Mr. Rooter online. So I believe each location has the autonomy to hire their own agency. I think that's pretty cool. The corporate overlords are providing stuff like GBP Post, but they're also given the flexibility to do what they think is best. Now, maybe they have some limitations or maybe those agencies were running it for giant areas of Mr. Rooter at a time. I don't know, but no matter what, we found out that it comes down to exactly what we thought it would come down to: Google Business Profile, website, and building authority through locally relevant and industry relevant links. Now, if you need help with your local SEO strategy, you should check out the first link in the description below, because my team can actually build a strategy for you. Now, this thing ain't free, but it's thorough, and it might be exactly what you need if you just need some clarity. But if you feel like building out your own strategy, well, put on a pot of coffee and make yourself a snack, because this 1.5 hour long video is going to show you exactly how to do that. I'll catch you in that one.